Welcome to Ask the Latina. I'm your host, Terry Beltran. This program is about the opportunity to ask and learn from a Latina trailblazer, with the mission to inspire and motivate Latinas to enter a career where we just do not have enough representation. For more resources, visit our website, AskTheLatina.com. Welcome to Ask the Latina. My guest today is Dayana Villagran. She's a mechanical engineer, and I'm really excited because we need more Latinas mechanical engineers. So we're going to have a really good interview, and you're going to learn a lot about what it's like to be a mechanical engineer and her journey. Thank you, Dayana, for being our guest.
Absolutely, Terry. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's start first with your heritage growing up, and tell us about that first. Let's get started with that area.
Yep. So I started well, I grew up in a migrant farm working family, so my parents traveled from Florida to Michigan every year for the seasonal crops. So
Mm-hmm.
typically we would come up to Michigan to like pick apples. In the meantime that the apple season started, we would do like weeding, pick corn, green beans, different legumes. And then in Florida we would do like tomato, eggplant, same situation. So we were always following work growing up. My parents actually still do this to this day. So when I don't work in my normal job, I try to help them on the weekends to get to spend a little bit more time with them when they're up here in Michigan.
Well, so they're in Florida then during the winter, and they're up here in Michigan during the summer?
Yes, so for the most part, so usually in Michigan they're only here for like 4 months,
Mm.
um, which it's just like a rainy season over there in Florida, so it's hard to do any agricultural work during this time period. So they tend to come up here, work, and then they go back during the winter because there's nothing here for them in the field. So they go back and do the same work in Florida. But most of the time, they spend it in Florida, and 4 months out of the 12, they spend them here in Michigan.
Yeah, well, that's an experience where you really seen the hard work that our parents go through, to so, when did you start where did you go to school then if you were in Florida and traveling back and forth like that?
I went to school in both states. So while I was here in Michigan, so we would help out working in the summers, and then once school started, my mom would enroll us in the local school of wherever camp we were living in, and then
Mhm.
as soon as the crop season finished, we would get all our paperwork to transfer all of our information over to the school in Florida.
Okay. So in Michigan, you must have been on the west side of Michigan mostly.
Yeah, we were in Sparta, like Kent City area.
Yeah, yeah, I know where
Yep.
that is. Mhm. Okay. Yeah. And when you decided to go to school, at what point did you decide that you wanted to be an engineer?
It wasn't until junior or senior year. I wanted to be a lawyer growing up. Like that was what I thought my passion was. I I think a lot of it had to do with like the influence that my family had, the situation that they had. Um, my father was deported when I was a junior in high school.
Mm.
Um, and so it changed a lot of things. Responsibilities grew, and I just I I guess my mentality shifted where it was like, you know what, if I'm gonna go to do something for the rest of my life, I have to find something that I can actually feel comfortable doing. Wasn't really strong in like my reading and writing subjects. Like
Mhm.
I guess English was not that I'm not proficient in English, but it's always been a little bit more of a challenge for me to translate things in my head because in my household it was always like you spoke Spanish and you only spoke English when you went to school. You never spoke English at home because it was disrespectful to your culture. It wasn't, which to that extent, I didn't lose my mother tongue. I kept that, and so I think it was a great benefit because I know a lot of people struggle with the Spanish when they grow up in America. The they kind of assimilate to the culture that's here. And thankfully my
Mhm.
parents always were very proud of their heritage and they passed that along. So I am extremely grateful for the way they raised us. So that's
That's good. Yeah,
yeah.
it is valuable. Your family's from what country?
My both of my parents are from Mexico.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
And yeah, that is very rare because mostly like in Texas and most Mexican families didn't want their kids to speak
Right. Yeah.
Spanish. So, and I would run into a lot of, um, you know, Latinas or Latinos that didn't speak Spanish, and at work they expected them because they were
Right.
Latinos, which was wrong, but yet, they felt. But yeah, I think it is a value, especially now. I think it's so valuable to have that second language. So you just when you decided to go, well, when you went to college, how did you decide to go to, where did you decide to go first of all, and
Right.
how did you decide to go there?
Yeah. So my brother actually so my brother is about 4 years older than me. He went to MSU via like a camp program for migrant students. Um and he got an internship for like a seeding company, Lear Corporation.
Hmm.
And
Company.
during my high school years, I was like very active with like honor society, academic team, just trying to get everything I could so that I could stand out and have a chance at life beyond the little town that I grew up in, because it was very there wasn't I mean it wasn't very encouraged to go to school where I grew up. It was very, you go and help your parents, you work right after school so that you can help provide. And it was just like the mentality was not getting an education. It was like you work and you help, and that's where you end up, and it's just a cycle. It's like a never-ending cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Um and so when I was in high school, I tried to stand out so that I could get a better chance of getting accepted.
Yeah.
And I remember there was like a I guess like a certificate that you could get if you did some type of internship, or experience with a company. And so I asked my brother if he could ask if it was allowed at his company for me to come in. It was going to be just a service. I wasn't going to they didn't have to pay me or anything. It was just like a week long learning, job shadowing type of situation. And I really really liked the way the structure was for engineering. So the group he
Mhm.
was in was for mechanical engineering, and it was nothing was the same. Like it was different every day. Like some days they would go to a supplier or stuff like that. So it was very diverse, and I was used to that. And I'm not the type of person that I can just sit down and sit at an office and do office work. I like to have the variability between the two. Like, okay, maybe today I'm at the office, but tomorrow I have to go do this. So like just having that different schedule that wasn't like a routine schedule is what really
Mhm.
called my attention. And just the
Mhm.
of like being able I could tell that it was an industry that was on high demand for females. So I was like, I can get something that I know I can make enough to afford to return on my investment, but
Mhm.
I can pretty much guarantee that I can get a job because of the situation that I was in. So to
Mhm.
me it was like a non-risk, I guess,
Yeah,
major that I would go into.
that's great. So your brother kind of was an influence for you.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
That's good. That's good. And then, so when did you have to? Did he kind of prepare you for going into college, while you were
So
still in school?
he was still trying to figure it out himself, so he didn't
Mhm.
really have, time to
Right.
he was stressed with school. So to me it was like everything else in life, you do what you can to prepare, and you get there and you do the best of it. He
Mhm.
unfortunately wasn't able to graduate. He didn't make it through, but I um I did end up sticking it out. So it just maybe different
Very-
circumstances, different mindsets at the moment. It just happened to be the way it was.
Well, that's good for you that you stuck it through and everything. Now, when you were saying it was a little difficult, was the influence of not wanting, staying working in the field with your parents coming from the community or
Um,
family?
just in general, like the mindset back home was, you know, how are you going to send your daughter off to college? That's like you're gonna let them go so far away, this and that. But my parents specifically were always for education. Like
Good.
you're not going to get anywhere in life if you don't go to school. It was like a constant reminder that they're like, no, you know what, this isn't, we don't want you to have the life we have, we want
Mhm.
something better for you. So they were always encouraging us to do better. you know it was, I mean, we worked right after school every day, so we saw it firsthand. We knew what we didn't want, so it was
Right.
like, try to find something that you do want, or even better pay, or safer environment to work in.
Mhm.
Was something
Mhm.
that they really drilled down to us, each and every one of us. Not everybody decided to go, and not
Mhm.
everybody made it, but I think that my parents definitely were a huge influence on like making sure that we understood the importance of education.
That's great. They really wanted you to go further. So you were born in Florida then, or your
So I was
siblings too?
actually born in Michigan. Yeah, so like
Oh,
during the
really?
transition, yeah, I was born here. Yep.
It's like me. I was born in Kansas City, Missouri, but raised in Michigan. We were like, oh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, cool. So you're a Michigander.
Yeah. I'm like, I return like the sea turtles. I return to my home.
That's
Yeah.
good. Well, that's great.
Yep.
So, okay, so you started at Michigan State, which is my favorite university as well as an alma mater. But so what are some of the things that you liked about the transition going? What were some of the challenges and opportunities that you found going to Michigan State?
I think the biggest thing was I was definitely not prepared. Like, just in academic wise, like one, emotionally, I was also not prepared, but academic wise, I didn't feel prepared. Like it took extra effort, which I don't know if that was like the read across the room, but I know a lot of people that I came in with that were Hispanics, because usually most of the people in the camp organization were Hispanics.
Mm-hmm.
Majority didn't make it through. And it's like, what causes, there's a lot of, that influences a person when they're in college, and a lot of things happen. My uncle and my aunt passed away, so you have all these external circumstances that you have to deal with, and you're away from home, and you're constantly getting judged by society of why did you leave your parents. um and then at that moment when I had started, my mom was alone, so she was alone with the three younger kids, so it was a constant pressure of like knowing that she was alone. um I think that emotionally, that's the difficult aspect that I had, and I was also really hard on myself when it came to grades, because I was like, well, this is all I have. If I don't do well, I won't get scholarships. I can't afford to pay for it. So, and to me, getting a loan wasn't an option. I was like, if I can't do it on my own and I can't work for it on my own, then why am I here? So that was my biggest thing, was having good grades that would pay off my college, where I wouldn't have to go and get a loan and be worried and concerned that I would be in debt for the rest of my life. Because that was always the consensus in the environment that I grew up in. It's like, oh no, they go to college, they get in debt, they never make it through, and now
Mm-hmm.
they owe all this money for
Yeah.
the rest of their life. And it, I mean, it's, I understand why they have that perspective, because it tends to happen. Um, but I think I got my support system in college that really helped me in the difficult times when I started questioning myself. And I think that, and with tutoring, help room, scholarships, I mean, just about everything helped me make the final step. So
That's great. I mean, for some of our young Latinas in high school that don't know about the program, can you tell us a little bit about it? Because it sounds like a great program. I'm not sure how many colleges or universities offer this,
yeah,
but
I know for sure Western does, but so
oh,
it's like for individuals that their parents or themselves, if they've worked in any type of agricultural work, um they they kind of go and recruit. I don't know how the process all works exactly because I applied
Mhm.
separately and then they just pulled my application um after the fact. So I got accepted, they pulled my application, and then I did like we came in as a cohort. So it's the program itself, it's there's certain classes that you end up taking because of the
Mhm.
program. But
Mhm.
I think the biggest thing that the program did for me was create a sense of community. Um, people don't look like you. Act they can't really relate to your circumstance because they don't really understand what it is to have to come home and go to work or be
Mhm.
constantly worried about while my mom was here, having to get all my homework done right on Friday so that I could leave Friday afternoon and spend the weekend with her so that we could help out. Um, they don't get the concept of that, and they don't have that understanding of the struggles that you have to go through just to be there. Um,
Mhm.
without having that guilt that you're not helping with your full potential. Um,
Mhm.
because of, I mean, you're in college. It's not just it's another job. Honestly, school is a job, and if you
Yes.
don't fully dedicate yourself to it, it's difficult to stay in. Um,
Right.
so that was the program itself. The biggest thing that it did for me was community, a sense of community, and feeling like I formed relation friendships that came in with the cohort that I came in with, and I still talk to my friend that I met during my cohort. So I think it's the network that you get when you come in, so that you don't feel so alone, and you know that there's
Mhm.
people in the boat just
That's
as
great.
much as you are. So
Yeah, I like that. There's a sense of community because so many Latinas, well, past generations like me, I just sort of felt like when I was at state, I didn't see too many other Latinas, especially in engineering. And so it's nice to see that this program is there because it does make a difference. And I think having a support group is really important. And it's
yeah,
nice that they do that. It's a great program. You started right from the front from freshman then at Michigan State.
yes, yep,
Yeah, it's not easy. So I admire you. And it is tough. I mean, I think for any student to go somewhere like that is first year is always really difficult. But and I agree with you. I think maybe it's just our upbringing because we realize how much our parents sacrificed coming to this
right,
country that we, like you said, I'm not going to let the money I put into this go. I want to get good grades. That really resonated with me because I thought the same way when I went there. I'm like, everything's important. I can't, I got to pass this.
yeah,
And same way, I didn't even, apply for scholarship. I didn't even know about it when I went. So I just basically paid my way. So yeah, yeah. So I agree with you on that. So tell us about the classes. When you went there, you probably had to take some prerequisites. The first stage of the first year where you take all the required courses first, and then you decide on mechanical engineering. Did you decide on mechanical engineering right away, or did it take
yeah.
some time?
I did. I declared my major right away, and I maybe it's because I'm stubborn or dedicated. People like to use different terms for it, but I stuck it through. I was like, if I made a decision, I'm gonna stick it through. I will say there was some times I questioned if I was capable of doing engineering just because of the rigorness of the major. But I think once you set your mind up for something and you work hard for it, it's like I've worked this hard and you have all these people depending on it. So it's not just like pressure on yourself, it's all the pressure that you have from like society, your family, your surroundings. It's like all the time that you invested plus the money that has gone into it. It's like, it's difficult to say I'm gonna give up just to give up. Um
Right.
so for me, giving up was never an option. It was a necessity to get my degree, and I said I was gonna do it, so I had to finish it off. So I think that for me it was, it starts off, I'm not gonna say it was easy. First year, I did well, but it was definitely a different level of rigorness compared to the high school I went to. So I think
Mhm.
that was it was a change in that, and it was just a change in the pace. You know,
Mhm.
classes are fast. It's you 2 semesters, and what you did in 1 year, you have to do in a semester. And so it's like
Right.
for me, it was the pace and the rigorness that really got me. But I think, I spent I I was like, I'm not gonna let that hold me back. So I would spend extra time. I knew I needed it, and I tried never to compare myself to others. I'm like, okay, well maybe they had something in their college that prepared them better. So why I'm
Mhm.
not gonna sit here and try to be or feel like I'm not smart enough in comparison to others, because I don't know what they went through, and I can't compare my life with somebody else's life because it's not the same. I have other situations that I have to deal with, and it's if I have to go the extra mile, I'm going to go the extra mile, because at the end of the day, I'm the one that's going to get affected, not them. So to me, it was always, you did what you had to do to get what you needed. Um but for engineering, I know you have to like get accepted into the College of Engineering, so you have to get all your prereqs,
Yep.
and they lay it out pretty well. I know um your advisors, I mean, you basically do your own schedule. You go to your advisors for, I guess, advice after you've already done your schedule. But I think just talking to other students, and like I laid everything out, and I planned my whole 4 years, and I was like, I can't mess up, because my well, I did 4.5, but I laid it all out, and I was like, this is the plan, and I have to stick to it. I don't have a plan B. This is the
Mhm.
only plan I have, and I have to execute it as best as I can, whether I like it or not. So that was, to me, is just like early on, just setting your mind to what you're gonna do. It's okay to change, and I'm not saying, some people change their majors throughout, and that,
Mhm.
they want to do something they love, or they want to do something that they're passionate about. For me, it was, I needed a job, and I needed to get money to help my family. That was the end
Mhm.
objective out of all of it. So to me, it wasn't like I needed to love my job, because I had already been working my whole life in a job that I didn't like. Yet my parents never complain. I've never heard them wake up and complain about having to go to work. They get
Mhm.
up, they go to work, and they provide. And they've made
Mhm.
numerous sacrifices for me. So what was one sacrifice that I had to make for them? So to me, that was the biggest thing, was like putting into perspective what I had been given, the opportunity that I had in my hands. Was I going to let that go to waste, or was I going to allow myself to in doubt, and then, kind of harm yourself to some extent, because you're doubting yourself, you're starting to go spiraling, because you feel
Mhm.
overwhelmed. But at the end of the day, you got to come back to your plan and try to execute it as best as you can.
The graduation day must have been a huge celebration, and I'm sure your parents were very, very happy about
Yeah,
your
they
accomplishment.
were actually, they drove over for graduation, so I was fortunate enough to be the commencement speaker, so we did get, the suite and everything for them. So it was
Awesome.
really nice. Yeah.
Oh, great. And you were the commencement speaker? That's
Yep.
great. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. All right. So then while you're, I know there's always when we're in college, we try and find internships. Were you able to do that? Or what was your transition to be able to get to work right after you graduate?
Yeah, so I did 3 internships with General Motors. So I did one every summer. I didn't get one my freshman year. So it was right at the summer of sophomore year that I got my first internship.
Hmm.
And I ended up getting it. I went to a career fair. Somebody told me that there was a career fair. You don't know any of that. You don't know what it is. You don't know what you're supposed to do, what you're supposed to take. But there's people that have been there, and I think that was another thing that camp really provided. They kind of um encouraged you to do stuff like this, to get yourself out there. So that was, and I didn't have an issue with that at all, because my whole life I had been trying to find things to make me stand out all the time, to try to
Right.
get a chance at
Right.
an opportunity for different things. So it was like, to me, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go and try it out. I'll, dress up the way the typical dress up, professional. And I took my resume, and sure enough, I got the call. that they were gonna give me the offer. So it was like several steps, and then it was the interview, and then it was like a phone interview, and then after that I did like a personal interview, and then I finally got my offer
That
around my birthday time frame. So it was a nice birthday gift.
yeah, I'd say that's great.
Yeah,
Oh, glad to hear that. So you did it
3 summers.
3 summers then?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. That's great. So with those 3 summers after you graduated, it sounds like they decided to offer you a job then?
Yeah, so during the so right after that, we it was like pandemic time frame. The person that I I had interned with the same team all three terms,
Mhm,
and the person that was in the position that I am in now had to resign for personal reasons because of the pandemic.
mm,
Um, so I they ended up waiting it out for me. So they brought somebody back from retirement and held the position for me, asked me if I was interested, and told me if I was willing to come back, they were willing to hold the position until I graduated. And sure enough, they held it for me and I got the job. So
wow,
it was to me it was really kind of them. They always tell me, you deserved it, you earned it. As an
aw,
intern, you really stood out. You came in early, you would leave late, you took work seriously when in comparison like to the other interns, you stood out. And I think that to me it's, you get that growing up, the hard
right,
work from me working in the fields, so I owe everything to my family at the end of the day, because I wouldn't have the work ethic that I have now if it wasn't for them. So
mhm.
it's like they got the job.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is true. It's so important, and yeah, you stood out and you made it. That's wonderful. So, now what do you want to do, and what's your plans going forward?
I think right now I mean I plan on staying with General Motors. I think there's a huge potential for growth. I know there's a lot
Mhm.
of ways to move around, and if there's something that you don't like, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, you advertise for that." I'm not advertising. I I feel proud of the company I work for,
Yeah,
I feel like I can move around. Like there's nothing holding me back. I can If I
good.
don't like what I'm doing, which I've never really cared if I like something or not, but I know that if I was miserable, I could find something else within the company. It's such a big company. I'm in manufacturing, so it's very fast paced, which personally I like because, I grew up in a fast paced environment, always having to adapt, and that's exactly what I do now. I might get a call at 3 a.m. like I did this morning to come in, but it's stuff like that that I feel like
Right.
if I feel like I make a difference, and I think for me it's like that satisfaction and fulfillment that I need to be, to give it my all. I think if
Right.
I have a job where I'm, just sitting down and waiting it out and just getting a paycheck at the end of the day, I can't live with myself. Like I have to feel like I'm making a difference and like I'm earning my pay. It was just the way
Mhm.
I was raised. My parents always told me, work for them to pay you. Don't just expect the payment, because how are so in the field, if you it's like usually we would work by the contract. So like you have your specific rows that you come to. They're like, if you don't take care of your row, it's not going to give you the same amount of crops that it would have given you if you took care of it. So if you
Mm,
destroy it, you're not going to get that amount of crops the next time. So now you're not going to make as much money because you made all the money at the beginning, when you were trying to go fast and you tried to fill up your bucket as fast as you could to make the money quick, but then you destroyed your plant. So now your next pick that you have to do, the next cycle that you pick it, it's not going to give you as much as it did the first time. But if you take care of it, you can probably prolong it and have more crops or more cycles that you go and pick it than if you took care of it. So it's like
yeah.
it's the same thing with your job. If you take care of your job and you do things to ensure that you're trying to make it better every single time, so that you're not constantly having to worry about it. It's like you're doing your job. You're taking care of your job, and you're earning your pay.
Mhm.
But that's, I know
You're
not everyone
contributing.
that way, so it's just I don't know, personal
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, I think that's great. I love the analogy. I think it's so true. I mean, you're the more you contribute, of yourself, the more, you're getting a lot out of it too.
Right.
And you're giving the company seeing the value that you give. And that's what you provided. That's awesome. So if you were to like turn back time, is there anything different you would have done or prepared before college, or anything um, that you see that you might have been able to do differently, or you would advise someone to do?
I feel like for my personal self, I gave it all I could.
Hmm.
Um, my surroundings, I think I blocked everybody and everything out just because I was so focused and worried that I wouldn't make it through. I had seen people fail constantly, so it was like,
Mm-hmm.
to me, it was like I can't be the next person to fail. So to me, I alienated myself from everyone. And there's, the few friends that I still have, they understand my perspective. They understood that my family was first, and you
Hmm.
know, that's how you know who your friends are, because they understand where you're coming from and why you are the way you are.
Yeah.
um to me, it was just, in college I didn't really network, and I I'm not sure that I would say I would want to do that more, just because
Hmm.
I do believe in God, and I believe I'm very blessed the opportunities that I've had. But I feel like I maybe I could have helped more if I wouldn't have like closed myself out to focus on trying to get things done. I tried to help as much as I could throughout, but it wasn't. I If I could help more, I would have liked to help more. Maybe
Hmm.
that's something that I feel like I could have done better.
In helping what at the school or your family
I
or?
would say at like school, like my surroundings. So like usually, the people that I studied with, I made sure we would study together, and I would help as
Mm,
I could. But it was like a, you know, back and forth, it was like
yeah.
they would help me, I would help them. But I think I didn't really, I was involved with like Cornerstone Residential, which is like a program in for engineering students. You provide services and stuff, but that was my job. So it wasn't
Mhm.
like, I did it because it was my job, and I, like anything else, I do it as best as I can. But for me to like personally give time to people, I just, maybe I say that now, maybe you know, I was drowning, but I feel like maybe if I could have helped somebody, I would have wanted to help other people. I don't know that I actually had the time, because I was always working and I was always studying. So I guess I wouldn't say I would go back in time and change anything, but if there was an opportunity and I didn't take it, I guess that would be something that I would try to correct. You can always improve
Yeah.
on yourself, so I think that's one of the things.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you could say that your advice is to really be focused. I mean, your focus is so important. Um, I agree with you. I don't think I had much of a social life at Michigan State either. It's just very intense. We have so
Yeah.
much that we're, working on, and it's just really down to I think the only time I had a breather was right after finals. I feel like it was a groundhog sticking my head out of the ground after, being studying for exams and everything. But yeah, so I think it's natural. There's a lot, the focus and what you said, your drive, is important. So, and you had to make it happen. So let's do it. Did you get involved with any organizations? Like, I know that there's Society of Hispanic Engineers or SWE. Were those programs ever open to your group?
Yeah, they weren't really like advertised, but my friend that was like heavily involved in them like would always encourage me to go. But like I said, I
Mhm.
closed myself out completely. I'm like, I'm not going to go into an organization and do events or go to conferences. I'm like, I don't have time.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't just miss. For me, the biggest thing is like attendance was a huge thing for me. Like I never missed a day of school or class.
Mhm.
It didn't
Yeah.
matter how sick I was. I got really sick towards my last semester because I think my body was telling me like you need to stop. But that that wasn't by choice, and I still made it happen. I actually joined from the hospital, but because we were on Zoom at the moment. But I think that for that, I didn't. just felt like I didn't have time for it. Like it was they're demanding, and you do get the experience of like leadership and all of this, but it's like, I was already working in a program that provided that, so I was like, I'm not going
Yeah.
to go try to do organizations
Another one.
to check it off on my resume when
Mhm.
I just didn't have the time and effort to do it. So I was like, I don't like to do things halfway. If I was gonna
Yeah.
if I got involved, I was gonna go beyond the expectation. And I was like, I can't add something else in my plate right now where it's already full. But I did get involved with my very last semester. I started working for Women in Engineering.
Mm.
Uh, the director ended up reaching out to me that they needed help, and they needed Hispanics. So I was like, yeah, I don't know how to say no. I think that's one of my biggest my weaknesses. Um, and I was like, yeah, I can do it. And I had two jobs, and I was doing my capstone project, and it was a lot, but I definitely feel like if at any point in life in that time frame I impacted somebody, it made it worth it. So I guess
Mhm.
those were the only two that I got involved with, but it was specifically because it was technically my job. So,
Tell us about the capstone project. What was that like?
yeah, so for that, for mechanical, for us, they gave us like certain projects we had to choose from, and then you get like your company sponsor, and then you get like a professor who is also, I guess, like your mentor, but also like checks up on you on like your progress in the project. And then they're the ones that grade you at the end of it. So I know other schools tend to do it differently, but ours is only like that semester long, and then you pick like your top 3, and then from the top 3 you end up they select which one you end up getting. um
Mm.
and we ended up, the team that I was in, we ended up getting a sled hockey platform, transfer platform for people with disabilities. So
Mhm.
it felt like you were making a difference to some extent. Like, we were already like phase 4, but phase 2 and 3 didn't really get to do much because it was during the pandemic. So it was all
Mm.
research based and
Right.
theoretical, which we now know, especially now that I'm at work, it's like what you plan doesn't necessarily mean that's how the plan's gonna go. So it was like
True.
just adapting to like what they had researched, um and then actually implementing something of our own, taking the findings that we found that weren't going to work from the research that was done or what was going to work, and then choosing what we wanted to improve on it. um
Yeah.
so that's what we ended up doing. But
That's great. Oh, that's good program. Well, Diana, this has been a really good interview. I think that you inspired our young Latinas, especially many of them that understand exactly, your situation and that they need to go forward. We need them. We have a low representation of Latinas in engineering, and I think watching you makes a big difference. So they hear your story and they know that it's possible because they see you as a role model. So I appreciate your time and telling us your journey.
yeah, absolutely, I'm always, like I said, I'm always happy to help. Even when I'm like stressing, I think that's been one of my biggest things. Like now, even like at work, I get opportunities to speak to students and stuff, and to me it makes a difference because I would
Hmm.
have loved to see somebody that would like care, and
Yeah.
I truly do care about like students and their journey, because it's sometimes you feel like you don't have anybody. And if you can be that person for somebody, I think that makes all the difference. And it makes it all worth, the extra time, the extra hours that you have to put in to help out. I think to me, that's the gratifying part of it.
Yeah, and I'm grateful that you're also one of our mentors on our As Latina app. So, getting to hear your story and everything for that Latina that will choose you as a mentor is really an excellent opportunity for her to hear your story for sure.
Thank
So, thank you, and so I'm sure that we're going to have some future talks, and as your journey continues, and look forward to having you back so we can talk more.
thank you, Terry. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity.
You're welcome. Well, this concludes our interview with Asa Latina. I hope you join us for the next one. Thank you. Thank you for listening to our episode. And please, if you know a Latina high school student or early college student who is interested in having our guests mentors to mentor them, have them go visit AskTheLatina.com and select I Want a Mentor. Our mentorship app pairs Latinas students with Latina professionals so they can successfully apply for college and go through college in these fields where we just do not have enough representation. Thank you.